Good morning to all of our friends out in Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn land. Welcome to a conversation this morning that is going to impact absolutely every family who tunes in. I am Clarissa Constantine. I'm the founder of the Parent Tween Connection, and I love bringing in professionals like Beth Sandlin, owner of Trifecta Pilates, to talk about all things related to teens and tweens. So, first of all, good morning, Beth. Thank you for being with me. I'm so glad to have you.
And I'm so thrilled to be here this morning as well.
So we know, unless you've been living under a rock, we know that physical movement, whatever variety it is, walking, CrossFit, Pilates, the gym, standing upside down, whatever it is, right? Physical movement is healthy for our bodies. So let's start there. And then we're going to get into the mental health side and how it impacts the parenting aspects of things. So let's just start with the baseline for anyone who has been living under a rock about the benefits physically of what we navigate.
There are so many benefits of moving our body in a lot of different ways. And I think that's one of the things that I love about where we are right now with what we know about exercise or moving our bodies is it's just not a one size fits all approach, or you have to run, or you have to go to the gym and do strength training. It's that there's actually different elements that are really beneficial for our body. We know cardiovascular work, and that can be walking, cycling, kayaking, going for a run if you enjoy that. There's a lot of different options, even dance. That's what I'm really into right now, doing a dance conditioning class for cardio. There's also then the benefits of strength training. And as we get older, we really want to focus on this. And this is also important to instill in our kiddos of how to strength train in a way that's really beneficial to them, not too much, not too little. And again, it doesn't matter if you're doing this in a gym, going to a rec center, out of the comfort of your own home. There's a lot of options for both with equipment and without equipment, which is amazing. And I would say one of the kind of up and coming trends that we're starting to see now is more emphasis on mobility work. And that is really taking the body through a large active range of motion. So as compared to stretching, where you would hold a stretch for a few deep breaths. And for some of us, that feels lovely. And others of us were like, nope, we don't want to be stretching. Mobility is really how we keep our body safer, joint safe. And what we know is with any one of these areas, we can see and make improvements no matter where we began. So whether someone's a young kiddo or you're over the age of 40, 50 or beyond, we're seeing that from research studies that improvements can be made. So it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. And I know you and I were chatting a little bit beforehand, before we actually went live, about the fact that we didn't grow up as athletes, you or I. And I don't know about in your world, but in my world, exercise, like in my parents' world, I should say, or, my mom's world anyway, exercise was a 4-letter word. And unfortunately, my mother's end of life came as a result of obesity. And I'm in my 40s at this point going, man, I really wish that not only for her and her longevity, her health, her well-being during her lifetime, but also in terms of the fact that as parents, the adults set the model and the behavior for the kids. I wish I'd had that modeled more for me, because now as I'm in my 40s, I'm like, man, finding exercise as an adult is challenging. So I think there's an aspect that we look at this of, we recognize as the adults in the world that the physical benefits are good for ourselves, but we can't underestimate the models that we're setting for our kids.
100%. And not only did I not exercise as a child, but my parents didn't, much like yours. And once I made that shift, and for me, my wake up call was when I was very young in college. So after the high school years, I was walking up a flight of stairs and I realized I'm getting winded by walking up a flight of stairs. It wasn't even running. It wasn't a light jog. It was simply walking. And I knew I wanted to try hiking. I'd never hiked before. Maybe goes back into my family. Wasn't very active as a family as a whole. And I realized, well, I better get in better physical conditioning if I want to go hiking. And now as a family, we go hiking, which is amazing. However, if I link that back to what are the steps that we need to take, and it really is just small in the beginning, finding what we enjoy doing. And as soon as I had kids, I realized that when I go down in my basement to work out, because that's where I work out every single day, almost, unless I'm outside doing some physical activity instead, I want them to hear positive messages from me. And so often, particularly for women, we hear messages, oh, I need to go to the gym to like burn off the calories I just ate from that cookie, or I need to get back in shape. And I
Hmm.
never ever wanted that to be the message that they heard, that I was going down there for, I just want to move my body or feel better. And it also helps me regulate my emotions, which is really
Hmm.
wonderful as well. So there's so many benefits, and those are the messages they hear, when I'm going down. And as a side tip, sometimes I'll say to my teenagers who were tweens before, do you need anything before I go work out? No or yes. And so I deal with that beforehand. And then I'm carving out time for myself. Other times we do family activities.
Sure. So, to your point about language, I do want to give a shout out. We had a guest last week, Sammy Berkowitz. She is a registered dietitian, and we were talking about how the way that we talk about food matters. So, for folks tuning in, two topics obviously very related to each other. That was technically in our health and nutrition month, but now we're more looking at mindfulness and self-care. So, which is why we've got Beth in today. So let's talk about some of the mental health perspectives. Like I said, we know pretty well the physical exists. Where do we go with the mental health?
Again, there's a lot of research now that backs this up, which is amazing. I feel like, yes, I've finally been in the field
Mhm.
of movement long enough where what we have maybe experienced personally is being validated by research, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But what I like to lean in for is, what are people's personal experiences? And for
Mhm.
a lot of people that I've worked with, it was over the pandemic that they really realized they were coming to the Pilates mat consistently, not necessarily for a good workout, but it really helped their mental health during that very trying time where there was a huge life disruption, not only for us personally, but like community wide, worldwide as well.
Worldwide, yeah.
And it was their aha that, oh, I can work out for something beyond just physical benefits.
Mhm.
And what that did for a lot of people was open the door of Pilates workouts or otherwise don't always need to be challenging, not only for our physical body, but they realize for mental and emotional health as well. And it
Mhm.
really helped them start to tune into, well, is today like a high energy day where I'm feel like I can do something really vigorous, or am I slightly lower in energy? Because let's face it, as parents, we're going to be lower in energy some days,
Sure.
especially with the demands of our schedule. And maybe I need to adjust my workout based upon that. And that
Mhm.
is so liberating. People have felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm enjoying my workouts more.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be the same thing all the time. And that's something that I really like to focus on, is that for a consistent practice, it doesn't mean constant. We're going to
Mhm.
want to continue to make adjustments.
Sure. So I want to throw on a plug. I know I'd mentioned to Beth before we went live today that I actually used to be a personal trainer. My husband's a certified trainer as well. So he and I have at least marginally more than your average bear's exposure to the benefits of exercise. And one of my favorite books is actually the book Spark by Dr. John Ratey. He's an MD out of Harvard. And he actually compiles a whole bunch of this research, Beth, that you were talking about. To be fair, much of what he focuses on, or much of what he has collated, is based on cardiovascular. But one of the things that I've brought into my coaching, because I do a lot of test prep type stuff, I'd always tell my students, before you sit down to study or before you sit down for an exam, go for a run or do something that is a reasonably high intensity for like 8 to 10 minutes, because studies have shown that that not only has an impact on mental health, but it has an effect on mental processing. So, like, if you've got kids who don't like to do homework, or who are struggling to get through homework, or struggling with exams, just throwing that in as a little extra side note for our listeners, that cardiovascular exercise in particular has been shown to have cognitive impacts. And then it also has long-term cognitive impacts on things like dementia and Alzheimer's and other challenges that seniors tend to navigate. So a lot of us, or a lot of the folks that we're talking to now, are in the sandwich generation, where they've got the teenagers or the teens or tweens, but they're also dealing with aging parents. And so that's, just something to be aware of on the other end of the spectrum, so to speak.
100%. And It's one of those activities that we can do when we think about cardiovascular work, tuning into what people are enjoying doing. And for me, sometimes when people are like, "Ah, I don't really like cardio, are you sure I have to add that to Pilates?" I'm always like, yes, I am sure. But there's a lot of options. So it could be, if you like listening to something like this, you put some AirPods in or earbuds in and you start by going for a walk. And
Sure.
as a personal trainer, we're going to meet people where they are and then slowly go up. For me right now,
Hmm.
I mentioned I'm in a dance phase because that's fun. Before it was really into step, and I'll probably circle back to that. And then I throw in other things. And I think that when we lean into, oh, our workout program really can be focusing on what we enjoy doing, to lean into that. And if you're thinking, I don't enjoy doing anything, I was there at one point, like, oh, I don't exercise now. Like when I
Hmm.
was in elementary school, I distinctly remember having a conversation with friends. I am never going to own a pair of athletic shoes because I don't like them. Well, they weren't as cute as they are now, let's face it. But because I didn't really identify with being someone who enjoyed working out at all, and so we start small, start where we are, try new things, and kind of see what lands and keeps us motivated.
Absolutely. So then, obviously, so we've got physical health, mental health. That takes us into the next step of great. It helps with with the mental health, navigating stress and adaptability and those kinds of things. Promotes relaxation. It reduces tension, gives us more calm and more balance. I know on the days I at least hit my yoga mat for 10 minutes, even if I've done it the night before, it's not like you have to do it in the morning to have the effects for that day. Like I did yoga last night and I'm feeling pretty darn good so far this morning. I will get it in at some point. It's not like there's a time limit on it. But then let's also talk about if we get parents and kids moving together, it has all of these effects and more. What do you see compounding when you've got parents and teens who are able to do some kind of movement together, even if it's like a hike that may not feel like overly strenuous? I know you and I are both in Colorado right now, so there's plenty of strenuous hiking to be had here. Or a walk on the beach, or a walk around the neighborhood, a walk with the dog. A friend of mine used to do taekwondo with her kids, those kinds of things. What do you see as the benefit when we've got them working together on something?
Well, I think then we have the added benefit of social connection. And sometimes we don't think about that with our families, the social connection aspect. And when we can get moving, whether we're taking yoga class together or Pilates or going on that walk or hike, whatever it may be, there's a lot of different activities, is we're relating to the people who are closest to us in a much different way, especially our tweens and teens who's like, did you get your homework done? I'm going to take you to your activity. Okay, what do we have next? It's simply a time almost to pause without
Mhm.
meditating, which is really
Mhm.
beneficial. And I've noticed a distinct difference for my family when, whether it's we're going on a walk and we leave the cell phones at home, or we're going camping and then we get to go and we're hiking, that there is actually a bigger mood shifts that we all experience because we aren't plugged into our typical routines, whether it's school routines, and then
Mhm.
also the added kind of challenge sometimes that we have navigating with technology, as well as wonderful as it is. Like that's why we're connecting today. There's also real challenges when it just feels like that constant grind. And so I've realized that those walks that we do, or what we're doing in a physical activity way, we have almost a different relationship with our kids compared to every other aspect of life. And I've noticed a lot of conversations have occurred that we probably
Mhm.
wouldn't have had if we didn't get out of the house and do something a little bit different.
Absolutely. And I know that that's going to be a big part of what we talk about in our exclusive conversation for folks in Parent Tween Village. I just wanted to chat a little bit about it, now, because it obviously is relevant. So, how do you recommend to parents? We're coming back to just focusing on parents because at the end of the day, we're the only ones, like, we can only control ourselves. We can invite our kids to participate, which again, we're going to get to. But if we're talking to the prototypical mom who's driving the kids all the places and doing all the things, who doesn't have a workout routine, maybe a mom kind of like you were, right? Like you said before, you found a pattern of exercise. How do you get started? How frequently did you jump in? How do we set ourselves up for success and not for failure if we feel like it's just so overwhelming to even think about?
I always suggest, and this is where I got started as well, start small.
Okay.
Even though workouts have always been, since age 19, really important to me, as soon as I had kids, I realized, whoa, this is different. I have to try to squeeze it in. And especially once I started working full time, it became even more challenging, where like I had a non-existent workout program. And to start again, went down in the basement and said, I'm going to work out, and came back up 10 minutes later. My husband said, you're done already? 100% I'm done. Because what I realized is when I tried to fit in the more traditional workout of an hour long, that sometimes I could do that. I was trying to like 3 to 4 times a week, but if I missed one day, I felt like, oh my gosh, like that was a whole hour I missed. So I
Mm-hmm.
shifted then to, I'm going to work out every day for 10 minutes as my starting point. But I knew this as well. This was in my back of my mind. I have a family, I have a real life. I'm probably going to miss 1 or 2 of those days. And missing those shorter segments isn't as big of a deal compared to missing a longer length class. And also, like you, I see where I can fit it in my day and not be stuck to what used to work really well.
Mm-hmm.
So especially people with kids, like when I first had them, nap time was an amazing time, especially when they were with 2 naps. Well, my tweens and teenagers are not really taking naps. Well, the teenagers do. It's a little bit different now, but there's a different type of energy with teenagers. Like the schedule just kind of is shifting more. And so when I was taking them to physical activity of their own, dance classes, sports, what I realized was, well, rather than just sitting in the car or sitting inside waiting for them, I'm going to go on a walk. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's in a park where there's a path, and other times it's walking around a parking lot. Sometimes I would look at a picnic bench and be like, okay, I'm going to do some lunges on that picnic bench. And so it's taking advantage of the time we have. And if you're thinking, but I'm tired, this is one thing that we know that exercise can do. When we start small with just the right amount, it actually gives us more energy,
Mm-hmm.
has an energy shift. So when I have sat in the car before and just waited for my kids to complete their activity, many times I've kind of dozed off. But if I use that same time to go on a walk, do something a little bit different, then what I noticed is I actually have more energy to go into the evening rather than feeling really depleted.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know that I've definitely lived in a space of like, oh, 10 minutes doesn't matter. 10 minutes is nothing. I used to make up excuses like, oh, I already got up and did my hair and makeup for the day. I don't want to go get all sweaty and have to do it again. But even like, I'll take my dogs out to the dog park and I'll just walk the perimeter of the dog park. And it's just a way, as long as I'm out there with them. I mean, it's not human children because I don't have the human children, but it's at least a way where I'm like, hey, if I'm getting them out and getting fresh air, there's an opportunity for movement. So I like the fact that you say, take advantage of the time that you've already got, even if it's walking a parking lot. I had a question and it has completely disappeared from my mind. How many times a week would you recommend that somebody even starts? Because like, again, 10 minutes, you're done already. Like if I don't know if you saw my face where I was like, thanks husband. Thanks for the judgment that we didn't need. Right. And I know that's not what he meant necessarily, but that's definitely a lot of people's perspective. It's like, it's only 10 minutes. Like, are we talking once a week? Are we talking 5 times a week?
I would recommend when you're getting started out, if you're really trying to carve out time for your workouts, is start short and small, the 10 minutes, at least 5 days a week. If you can make that 7, amazing. Here's the caveat. Remember, we may miss a day. And this doesn't mean we're going to run every day or do strength training every day. What it allows for is more active recovery. Like, well, one time I'm going to do something really soothing and some gentle stretches, and then maybe take 5 of those minutes to breathe deeply, because we know that type of movement is really wonderful for our body and also our mind. It helps us reset. So if you do like maybe doing a vigorous spin aerobics workout, it actually gives you more energy to go into that. And that's something that can be really helpful is then we are adding more variety into our workout program, which is a really big way of how we're not going to lose motivation when we can mix it up a little bit more.
Mhm. I actually just had the thought too. I remember my dad has said that when he and my mom first got married, when they would argue, he would actually say, I'm going to go for a walk. And he would go for like 10 minutes because he knew he needed to calm down in order to not just lose his mind in an argument. Because I mean, what marital partnership doesn't have the occasional tiff? But that could be something for folks listening in, is like, not only if you have a partner in your world or a co-parent, if they irritate you or something happens, but like, hey, when your kids, notice I say when, not if, right? When your kids are or you're in a situation with your kiddos where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm about to blow my stack. What a great opportunity. So many of our parenting coaches talk about practice the pause, take a breath, step away for a minute. But that could be a great opportunity to be like, you know what? I'm going to take this time. I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk, or I'm going to go to the downstairs to the gym, or whatever the movement is that we're going to get in. Not only does it help you practice the pause and it forcibly removes you from the situation, but talk to me for a minute about the impact of exercise on those kinds of emotions, the frustration, the anger, the wanting to blow your stack at your kid.
100%. And I have a real personal experience with this when my kids were younger. I was in the bathroom. It was all I remember is I was getting more and more frustrated and had a hairbrush in my hand and like wanted to brush their hair or something. And they wouldn't let me. And my husband just walks in and gently takes the hairbrush from my hand and said, I think you need a break right now. And it was like one of my top 20 moments of how I felt supported by him in our relationship. And what I
Mm-hmm.
realized is that week, I actually had fallen off of a more consistent workout practice. And I made that connection right away. Okay, if it's not for my physical health, it is for so I can show up and be a better parent. And so, yes, we can definitely take those walks and time away, like when our energy is starting to feel like it's not going to be positive for us or the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
And once we have experienced that, we can then say, well, what if I had a more consistent movement practice that I enjoy so I can get in front of that rather than kind of always behind it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another reason why is it can have huge emotional regulation as long as, again, we are choosing the types of exercise that we appreciate and that help us. And what sometimes happens is for a phase of our life, we may really resonate with one type of movement. As an example, I know someone who, like, for a year, she did CrossFit and she really enjoyed that. And
Mm-hmm.
after that year, she's like, you know what? I don't really feel like I want to keep doing something like that. And she shifted more into a softer practice of vinyasa yoga, complemented by some cardiovascular work. For her, it's hiking. She loves hiking with her dogs. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really like to appreciate the shifts that we have, which I think sometimes are more apparent when we do experience shifts in life. And when we have kiddos, those shifts in life are often kind of where they are in their life stage may influence what we feel motivated to do as well.
Well, and what we feel like is realistic for ourselves, right? Awesome.
100%.
Okay. So we've talked about the impacts that we know physical exercise has on physical health, mental health. Talked about role modeling and inviting our kids to participate, which is what we're about to go have a deeper conversation about with Parent Tween Village. Talked about starting small. And I love hearing that you're saying as little as 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. If you can do it regularly, carve that time out for yourself. Great. And if not, do what you can and do what you like. Because the other aspect is if you don't like it, you're not going to stick to it. So there's no point in even trying what you don't like. I don't think. I mean, maybe explore it, but if you don't like it, you don't like it. And then it helps you be a calmer, happier individual, which then obviously spills over onto your kids.
100%. And it would be like trying to have your child do a physical activity, like say that they tried baseball, but they really don't like it. And you're like, no, you're going to keep playing baseball. You're going to keep playing baseball rather than, as a parent through like their young kid years and all the way through where they are now, they have tried a whole bunch of different physical activities that we have actively most likely enrolled them in. And we just want that same almost experimentation when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to movement. Let's give it a try. Is it challenging? But there's something a little bit there that we like, so we want to keep going, and then that's going to improve how we feel about moving our body, will increase our skills, or is it really like, no, that just doesn't jam with me right now. I'm going to move on to something else. And that's one of the benefits now, is that there is research to show that everything from more gentle exercise to something a little bit more vigorous is really beneficial for us. So it's just leaning into finding what that almost key is to unlock the door
Mm-hmm.
for our personal movement journey.
Awesome. All right, we are going to wrap up this portion of our conversation. For anyone listening, if you are not yet part of Parent Tween Village, Parent Tween Village is our family facing community that brings in experts like Beth who give us exclusive insight on related topics. And so Beth and I are going to continue the conversation talking about how to role model healthy activities for our kids and how to engage them and do it with us. Again, we kind of had a little bit of a teaser that's getting them to do it with us is really where we have the opportunity to strengthen our connections with them directly. And if you're not yet part of Parent Tween Village, come on over to our website. It's parenttweenconnection.com/Parent Tween Village. The conversation that we're going to have is going to be in that Facebook group as well as in our members only pages. And we'd love to have you join us there for talks like we're about to have, as well as our community calls just for Village members. So Beth, thank you so much. And stand by. We will head on over to the other group here shortly.
Thanks so much.